You can access the entire episode now on our website, forbiddenknowledge.news, Rumble, and all podcast platforms. There have been some Earth changes and anomalous things that have happened with our sun and solar system. There's a lot of eyebrows recently raised about what happened with the radiation spike and the northern lights. Some are speculating and have brought up that there was indeed testing going on from HARP at the time. So who knows what this is really about? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we have a lot of things going on at the same time, but we have to jump back a little bit. Back in 2017, we had some kind of a strange anomaly that set off all the gamma sensors in the United States, Europe, Russia, China. All the gamma sensors went off. Now, what gamma radiation usually means, those sensors were set up to detect a nuclear explosion, because the gamma radiation. So way back in 2017, we had multiple waves of gamma radiation from somewhere, and it was setting off the sensors to Radcon 5. Now, at Radcon 5, if it's maintained for more than 8 hours, the military usually issues iodine. But something was setting off the sensors, and it wasn't nuclear explosions. So where did it come from? It had to come from outside in. Well, then we have all kinds of strangeness with, Hunga Tonga went up. That put like 15% more moisture in the air. That's going to change the weather, at least predominantly in the southern hemisphere, but eventually in the northern hemisphere. 15% more atmospheric moisture than there was before. And we're seeing all kinds of anomalies. Let me give you a very good example. This last 2 weeks of tornadoes in the United States, we had one tornado that shot debris 22,000 feet in the air. Last night, we had one that threw stuff in 30,000 feet into the air. That's unheard of. This stuff was 30,000 feet in the air, and an hour later, the debris was still at 10,000 feet. It was being held aloft. That's to have a tornado who can top out the debris field at 30,000 feet. I've never seen that, and the people that I've talked to said they've never heard of it, but it's happening now. So energetically, something's coming in, and it's not HARP. It's not weather manipulation, although you can see the NEXRAD's doing some weird stuff every once in a while. But the fact of the matter is if you look at what's going on, it's not just the United States. They're seeing it in China and Russia, and they're seeing it in India. They're seeing it in Africa and South America, Australia. Everybody is getting this. But when you start adding more energy to the electromagnetic field of the Earth, then the energy has to go somewhere. The lightning has been crazy scary.
Yeah, this is something I used to pay a lot more attention to, especially when I first started doing this show. I would report a lot on the strange Earth changes that were occurring around the 2018 to 2020 range, and I stopped following everything. And I understand that you've been still following a lot of this stuff, and you were talking to me earlier about the Antarctic anomaly. Tell us a little bit about, first of all, what this is and how it keeps showing up.
Well, right off the island, they're just off of Antarctica. We keep seeing this anomaly appear there. Now, everybody's saying, oh, it's some kind of a testing system, or it's some kind of a HARP system or whatever. But I don't see it that way, even though that they could have the technology to do something like that to mess with the satellites. What the satellite keeps saying is that they're like 85 and 95 foot waves breaking off that island and running north.
Damn.
And then, of course, when they hit South Africa, you would know it immediately because everybody down there would be underwater. What we have been watching is solar activity and other things coming in and other detection systems. This satellite that everybody keeps seeing this anomaly on is just designed to detect waves. Like if there would be a slump off of an island, it would create a tsunami. If there was a huge storm, it would create waves out in front of it. That's what this system is designed to do. It's in the southern Atlantic anomaly area, which is where there's that weird magnetic field off in between Africa and South America, just down by Antarctica. It looks like it's an energetic pulse. Now, where the hell it's coming from? The sun has been doing weird stuff, and when that energy hits the magnetic field of the Earth, then there's these lines that it travels. It enters at the north and the south poles. But there's also these other lines that it travels and it enters into the earth. But that energy has to be dissipated. If you overcharge the earth, you get bigger lightning, you get bigger storms, all kinds of other things. But this anomaly has appeared like 8 times in 2 months, twice in the last 3 days. It's 3 days now. So whatever energy pulse is hitting there, the machine, the satellite is reading it as massive waves. But what I did notice, the pattern has held consistently, is when we see that wave, about 4 days later, we start seeing strange weather in South America and Africa and eventually up here.
You think it could be at all connected to the rapid rate that our magnetic North Pole has been migrating towards Siberia for the past over decade or so?
Well, yeah, we've got the North Magnetic Pole that is migrating over Siberia at a record pace, and every time we get a good jolt, it seems to go a little faster. And then people forget the Southern Magnetic Pole has also been migrating. So, people pay attention to the northern one, but they aren't paying attention to the southern one. And, it's going to create weird field lines in that, you think about a magnet that has a field lines around it. Everybody's seen that horseshoe shape coming off both ends of a magnet. Well, when you start moving the north and south poles closer together, it's going to change those field lines and make them act very, very strangely.
Makes me wonder about the declassified CIA documents. That was a book by, I think it was Chan Thomas, called The Adam and Eve Story.
Chan Thomas, yeah. Yep, the Adam and Eve story. I think there's something to that. But we also had a Navy admiral. I'm trying to remember his name. We had Albert Einstein was trying to figure it out. So I mean, it's not a problem that hasn't been known. You had daggone it, Ferrata from down in South America that talked about this. I can't remember his first name, folks. It's Ferrata, and
didn't he speculate that it had something to do with a rogue planet or Planet X or something like that?
Well, Ferrata said that, and if you ever seen his map, of course, the naval officer in Australia also, but if you ever saw Ferrata's drawing and what he had drawn, it showed that there was an extraplanetary body out there that we weren't being told about. But then the Voyager spacecrafts both pinged it. You can go back to, good Lord, I think it was 1978 or 79 in Science magazine, and you could actually see that they had pinged this object. I find it interesting that they built all these infrared telescopes that nobody can get any information from, when they're talking about it being a red dwarf that you would only be able to see in infrared.
I remember when I was looking into that back in the day, looking on Google Space, the infrared version, and seeing that they had a huge intentional black block over this celestial object that they would have to every once in a while move the position of the block because the object kept moving out of the way of the block. I haven't looked at that in a while. I'm not even sure if it's still accessible, but that was very intriguing that there was something there.
Well, it's funny that you're saying this because, for years I did the Ferrata thing and I took the open available imagery that they had and I followed it from where his map showed into the constellation Leo, which would be bringing it closer to us. And you could see the spirals and you could see something in the middle. But then as it got closer and you have to follow it by quadrants. So you're doing altitude and east and west on the satellite imagery or on the telescope imagery. But the interesting thing is just like you, I found them black blobs, and when I knew the next zone that it should be in, I looked there and it was completely blacked out. And then folks, my computer and both of my external hard drives that I stored stuff on from 9/11, from Sandy Hook, and the stuff that I was researching in regards to this, they got fried and they were not hooked to the internet. They were not even turned on. And the 2 hard drives that I had externally were separate from the computer, and they all 3 got toasted.